Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for your sensitivity to our constituents' needs.
I am sensitive to them because I see them on the street begging for food.
Nancy Pelosi and Wolf Blitzer went to war on CNN, and I have the highlights. Now, this was a 12-minute interview. Of course, I'm not going to show you the entire thing, but I cut it down to the most important pieces, put it into two separate clips. The second clip, you got to wait for it. The way this interview ends is amazing. But first, just to properly set this up briefly, this discussion was over the stimulus. So the House had passed a $2.2 trillion stimulus that, of course, the Senate did not take up. Trump was pushing for a $1.6 trillion stimulus, raised it to $1.8 trillion. I'll get into more details after this first clip, but here you see Wolf Blitzer pushes Nancy Pelosi on why she will not accept the $1.8 trillion stimulus.
And as you know, there are Americans who are being evicted from their homes. They can't pay the rent. Many Americans are waiting in food lines for the first time in their lives. Can you look them in the eye, Madam Speaker, and explain why you don't want to accept the president's latest stimulus offer?
Well, because, thank you very much, Wolf, and I hope you'll ask the same question of the Republicans about why they don't really want to meet the needs of the American people. But let me say to those people, because all of my colleagues, we represent these people. I have for over 30 years represented my constituents. I know what their needs are. I listen to them, and their needs are not addressed in the president's proposal. So when you say to me, why don't you accept theirs? Why don't they accept ours? Because Mitch McConnell says let the states go bankrupt.
Excuse me for interrupting,
let the states go bankrupt.
Madam Speaker, but they really need the money right now. And even members of your own...
I understand that,
but even members of your own caucus... Even members of your own caucus, Madam Speaker, want to accept this deal. $1.8 trillion. Congressman Ro Khanna, for example. But let me just quote Ro Khanna, a man you know well. I assume you admire him. He's a Democrat. And he just said this. He said, people in need can't wait until February. $1.8 trillion is significant and more than twice the Obama stimulus. Make a deal. Put the ball in McConnell court. So what do you say to Ro Khanna?
What I say to you is, I don't know why you're always an apologist, and many of your colleagues apologists for the Republican position. Ro Khanna, that's nice. That isn't what we're going to do, and nobody's waiting till February.
But there are millions of Americans who have lost their jobs. They can't pay the rent. Their kids need the food.
That's right, and that's what we're trying to get done.
$1.8 trillion. And the president just tweeted, stimulus, go big or go home. He wants even more right now. So why not work out a deal with him, and don't let the perfect, as they say here in Washington, be the enemy of the good.
Well, I will not let the wrong be the enemy of the right.
What's wrong with $1.8 trillion?
Well, you know what? Do you have any idea what the difference is between the spending that they have in their bill and that we have in our bill? Do you have any idea of how
That's precisely why, Madam Speaker,
short they're concerned?
That's why it's so important right now. Yesterday, I spoke to Andrew Yang, who says the same thing. It's not everything you want,
but you know what?
There's a lot there.
Honest to God, you really, I can't get over it, because Andrew Yang, he's lovely. Ro Khanna, he's lovely. They are not negotiating this situation. They have no idea of the particulars. They have no idea of what the language is here. I didn't come over here to have, so you're the apologist for the Obama, excuse me. God forbid.
Madam Speaker, I'm not an apologist. I'm asking you serious questions because so many people are in desperate need right now. A line from the letter you wrote. The president only wants his name on a check to go out before Election Day and for the market to go up. Is that what this is all about? Not allow the president to take credit if there's a deal that will help millions of Americans right now?
He's not that important. But let me say this. With all due respect, and you know we've known each other a long time, you really don't know what you're talking about. If the plural of anecdote is not data. Yes, there's some people who said this or that. Overwhelmingly, my caucus wants what is right for the American people.
We are just getting warmed up. Wait for the second clip. Now, I got to comment a bit on this. Nancy Pelosi here is getting worked up. And you could argue she at least has, she does have a reason to. I do agree that CNN and the media at large do not push the GOP enough. They often take the right-wing framing. The Democratic House passed a $2.2 trillion stimulus. There wasn't enough pressure from the media on the GOP to take that up in the Senate. Now, to be fair, Democrats as well are not great at making their case. It is on the Democratic Party to make that case to the media and for the media to then take that case and push it to the GOP. In terms of being, the way these interviews work normally is Democratic messaging gets pushed out there, the media picks it up, whether it's Democratic messaging or GOP messaging, and that's how this back and forth happens. Well, because the Democratic Party is not doing enough to actually put their messaging out there, then you're not seeing enough pressure put on the GOP. That said, if these journalists were being objective, they should be putting this pressure on the GOP regardless, pushing to pass the stimulus. But at the same time, the White House did up their stimulus from 1.6 to 1.8. Now, to get into some of those details, though, to find a deal, Republicans and Democrats would have to quickly resolve several issues that have seemed intractable throughout months of fruitless talks. Pelosi has insisted on at least $436 billion in relief for cash-crunched state and local governments, while Trump has resisted sending them more than the $150 billion they received earlier this year. Democrats want to reinstate the enhanced federal unemployment insurance at $600 per week through January. Mnuchin last offered a supplemental benefit of $400 per week. Other areas of dispute include tax credits and food aid. So there are some differences here, but the usual Nancy Pelosi would have taken the deal. The difference this time is Pelosi doesn't want to give the GOP and Trump a win before the election, which you could argue is a strategy, but at the same time, that strategy is leaving people without the help that they need. But you could also argue that it isn't really Pelosi leaving people without the help that they need when it is the GOP that is not accepting the $2.2 trillion stimulus package. So, look, I think there are points here. There are fair points to be made all around. That said, Nancy Pelosi does not come off well, especially in the second clip. Before I get there, I do want to get to the heart of the issue here. Jeff Stein tweets us out perfectly. A reminder that no stimulus deal at all means tens of thousands of airline workers get laid off, no federal supplement unemployment benefits for 20 plus million people, severe cuts / layoffs for restaurant hotel workers, checks 2.0 don't go out to millions facing pay cuts. He goes on to say here, Pelosi insisted today to Wolf Blitzer that a deal would get done. My sources and the sources of most reporters tracking talks are very bearish on anything happening before November 3rd. What is Dems' leverage after the election? Fair question. Now, the second clip.
But let's not go into that.
Yeah,
you evidently do not respect the chairman of the committees who wrote these bills.
I respect
and
all of you.
I wish you would respect the knowledge that goes into getting meeting the needs of the American people. But again, you've been on a jag defending the administration all this time with no knowledge of the difference between our two bills. And I thank you for giving me the opportunity to say that to you in person.
All right, Madam Speaker, these are incredibly difficult times right now, and we'll leave it on that note. Thank you so much for joining us.
We'll leave it on the note that you are not right on this, Wolf, and I hate to say that to you. But I feel confident about it, and I feel confident about my colleagues, and I feel confidence in my chairs.
It's not about me. It's about millions of Americans who can't put food on the table, who can't pay the rent,
and
who are
we
having
represent
trouble,
them, and we represent them,
getting
and
by
we represent
these
them,
long food
and
lines
we represent
that we're seeing.
them.
I know
we
you
know
are.
them.
I'm just saying.
We represent them, and we know them.
As we say,
know them. We represent them.
Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, as they say.
It is nowhere near perfect.
Madam Speaker.
Always the case, but we're not even close to the good.
All right, let's see what happens, because every day is critically, critically important. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for your sensitivity to our constituents' needs.
I am sensitive to them because I see them on the street begging for food, begging for money. Madam Speaker, thank you so much.
Have you fed them? We feed them. We feed them.
We'll continue this conversation down the road for sure. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Unbelievable. Nobody wanted to give the other the last word there. Just kept going back and forth. Wolf Blitzer, that was quite a line. I see them begging for food on the street. Wow. And then Pelosi, do you feed them? We feed them. This is, these are two that normally are very mellow. Don't go, don't color outside the lines, let's say. But this discussion, I mean, that's probably as far as you're going to see Wolf Blitzer go. And Nancy Pelosi, I'm not sure I've ever seen her like that ever. And the reason she's so defensive, by the way, is because she knows Wolf Blitzer's making solid points that she would normally agree with. But because she is using the strategy now of ensuring that the White House does not get a win before the election, she's kind of stuck in having to defend this position that is, of course, hurting people. But then, you can come back and say, well, the GOP did not accept that 2.2 stimulus package. Fair. So, I mean, there really is no winner here. And the ultimate loser is the American people who are getting no help because of this mess.